Eric Thompson stands in the shadows of a motel in Austin, Texas, clutching the keys to his wife Lauren's shiny Corvette. He has just seen her kissing another man. His heart burns with betrayal, but instead of blind revenge, Eric chooses cold calculation. Will he be able to uncover the lies and bring justice without losing himself? Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Eric, a 34-year-old sales manager at a thriving tech startup, lived what most would call the American dream. His modern two-story home in a leafy Austin suburb was the envy of his neighbors, with its sleek design and manicured lawn. He'd worked hard to get there, climbing the ranks at his company with a mix of grit and charm. His colleagues admired his cool-headedness, always the guy to defuse a tense meeting with a well-timed quip. Outside work, he was a regular at the local gym and volunteered at a community tech program, teaching kids to code. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good, or so he thought. At the heart of his world was Lauren, his 32-year-old wife. A marketing consultant with a knack for winning clients, she was the spark in any room. Her quick wit and radiant smile had drawn Eric to her 8 years ago, back when they were just two ambitious 20-somethings at a networking event. They'd build a life together, filled with late-night talks about starting a family and weekend drives in her prized Corvette. Eric loved how driven she was, even if her recent client dinners kept her out late. Her phone was always on silent these days, but he chalked it up to her demanding job. After all, trust was the foundation of their marriage. That trust started to crack on a blistering Tuesday morning. Eric's day was already a mess. His biggest client had backed out of a deal, and his inbox was a war zone. Then his boss dropped another bomb. Eric needed to drive to the company's warehouse in Round Rock to pick up equipment for a trade show. Grumbling, he grabbed the keys to a company van and called over Tyler, a 20-year-old intern with a knack for tech, but a tendency to overshare. "Let's make this quick," Eric said, tossing Tyler a water bottle as they headed out. The drive was uneventful until they hit a red light on the edge of town. Tyler, scrolling on his phone, suddenly perked up. "Whoa, check out that ride," he said, pointing to a gleaming red Corvette idling in the next lane. Eric's stomach dropped. It was Lauren's car, unmistakable with its custom plates. But what was she doing here in an industrial part of Austin, far from her downtown office? His mind raced. Maybe a client meeting? But her office was miles away, and she hadn't mentioned any off-site plans. "Tyler, grab your phone," Eric said, his voice steady but tight. "Start recording." Discreetly, Tyler raised an eyebrow, but complied, aiming his camera at the Corvette as the light turned green. Eric eased the van into traffic, keeping a safe distance. His palms were sweaty on the steering wheel, but he forced himself to stay calm. He wasn't jumping to conclusions. Not yet. Lauren's car weaved through traffic, and Eric followed, his heart thudding with every turn. Tyler, sensing the tension, stayed quiet, his phone still rolling. The Corvette pulled into the parking lot of a small, nondescript cafe called Sonny's Brew, a place Eric had never heard of. It wasn't the kind of spot Lauren would pick for a business lunch. Too casual, too out of the way. She stepped out, dressed in a sharp blazer, but looking unusually relaxed, her posture loose in a way Eric hadn't seen in months. A man in a tailored suit emerged from the cafe, his smile wide as he approached her. They exchanged a quick hug, their hands lingering a moment too long. Eric's chest tightened, but he kept his eyes locked on them, refusing to let emotion cloud his judgment. "Keep filming," Eric told Tyler, his voice low. He pulled the van into a nearby lot, parking behind a delivery truck to stay out of sight. Tyler zoomed in, capturing the man's face as he leaned in to whisper something to Lauren. She laughed, tossing her hair in a way that felt painfully familiar. Eric's phone burned in his pocket. He wanted to call her, to hear her voice, to prove this was just a misunderstanding. But something held him back, a gut feeling that whatever came next would change everything. He watched as Lauren and the man stood close, their conversation animated. There was no mistaking the ease between them, the kind of familiarity that went beyond a professional meeting. Eric's mind spun, piecing together the late nights, the vague excuses, the silent phone. He wasn't ready to name what he was seeing, but he knew one thing. He needed answers. And he'd get them, not with fists or shouting, but with the kind of clarity that only truth could bring. Eric sat frozen in the company van, his eyes glued to Lauren and the stranger outside Sonny's brew. The Austin heat pressed against the windows, but the chill in his chest was sharper. Tyler, still filming, whispered, "Boss, you okay?" Eric nodded, though his jaw was tight enough to crack. He couldn't tear his gaze away as Lauren laughed again, her hand brushing the man's arm. It wasn't just a meeting. It was something else, something that twisted a knife in Eric's gut. The man, tall with a polished look, gestured toward the cafe door, and Lauren followed him inside. Eric's mind raced, replaying every late-night client call she'd taken in the past few months. He trusted her, brushed off the odd hours as part of her grind. Now, each memory felt like a lie. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over her contact. He needed to hear her voice to test her. "Keep the camera on the entrance," he told Tyler, his voice steady despite the storm inside. He dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Lauren's cheerful greeting, asterisk, "Hey, it's Lauren, leave a message," asterisk, felt like a slap. Eric hung up, his pulse pounding. She didn't answer, he muttered, more to himself than Tyler. He tried again, this time texting. Asterisk, "Hey, where you at? Thought you had a downtown meeting." Asterisk, he stared at the screen, waiting for the three dots that never came. Minutes passed, and the cafe door stayed shut. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe it's just coffee with a colleague," he offered, but his tone lacked conviction. Eric didn't respond. He was replaying the way Lauren had leaned into the man, the familiarity in her smile. It wasn't the Lauren he knew, or thought he knew. The woman who'd planned their future over morning coffee was slipping away, replaced by a stranger who didn't even glance at her phone when her husband called. The cafe door finally swung open, and Lauren stepped out, the man close behind. They paused by her Corvette, their heads bent together like they were sharing a secret. Eric's breath caught as the man reached out, tucking a strand of Lauren's hair behind her ear. It was a small gesture, but it shattered something inside Eric. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, but he didn't move. He wasn't going to storm over and make a scene. That wasn't him. He'd find out who this guy was and what was going on methodically, like he tackled any problem at work. "Zoom in on his face," Eric said, his voice low but firm. Tyler adjusted the phone, capturing the man's features as he laughed at something Lauren said. She climbed into her Corvette, and the man waved before heading to a sleek black SUV parked nearby. Eric memorized the license plate as the SUV pulled out. Lauren's car followed, and Eric started the van, keeping his distance. "We're not done yet," he told Tyler, who nodded, still filming. They trailed the Corvette through Austin's bustling streets, staying far enough back to avoid notice. Lauren drove with her usual confidence, oblivious to the van shadowing her. She turned into a quiet office park, parking near a glass-fronted building with a sign that read Morgan Developments. The man's SUV was already there. Lauren stepped out, smoothing her blazer, and glanced around before heading inside. The man met her at the door, and they disappeared into the building together. Eric parked across the street, his mind churning. Morgan Developments. The name rang a bell, some big-shot real estate firm he'd heard about at a networking event. Was this guy a client? A boss? Or something more? He pulled up his phone and Googled the company. The website loaded, and there he was. Blake Morgan, 38, CEO and founder. The polished headshot matched the man from the cafe. Eric's stomach twisted as he scrolled through Blake's bio. Married, 2 kids, pillar of the community. A perfect facade, just like Lauren's. "Got enough footage?" Eric asked Tyler, his voice flat. Tyler nodded, pocketing his phone. "Yeah, clear shots of both of them." "What now?" Eric didn't answer right away. He was staring at the office building, imagining Lauren inside, laughing with Blake like she used to laugh with him. The betrayal stung, but he pushed it down. He wasn't going to let this break him. He'd get answers, and he'd do it without losing himself. "Now we head to the warehouse," he said finally. "But this isn't over." As they drove away, Eric's phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Asterisk, "Sorry, in a meeting. Talk later?" Asterisk, he stared at the words, the lie glaring back at him. His fingers itched to reply, to call her out, but he stopped himself. He needed more than suspicion. He needed proof, and he'd find it, no matter what it took. Eric's hands were steady on the wheel as he drove the company van toward the Round Rock warehouse, but his mind was a storm. The image of Lauren with Blake Morgan, her easy laugh, the way she leaned into him, burned behind his eyes. Tyler sat quietly in the passenger seat, sensing the weight of the moment. The intern's phone, now tucked away, held footage that could unravel Eric's entire life. But Eric wasn't ready to watch it yet. He needed to think, to plan, to stay in control. At the warehouse, Eric and Tyler loaded the trade show equipment in silence. The mundane task grounded him, giving his racing thoughts a momentary pause. As they stacked boxes, Eric noticed Lauren's spare car, key dangling from his keychain. It was a habit. He always carried it in case she locked herself out. An idea sparked. If he could get to her Corvette, maybe he'd find something concrete. A receipt, a note, anything to confirm what his gut already knew. He pushed the thought aside for now, focusing on the job at hand. Back in the van, Eric's phone buzzed again. Another text from Lauren. Asterisk heading to a client dinner. Home late. Asterisk the lie was so blatant it almost made him laugh. He pictured her in that glass-fronted office with Blake, plotting her next excuse. Tyler, Eric said, breaking the silence. You still got that video? Tyler nodded, pulling out his phone. Wanting to send it to you? Eric shook his head. Not yet, but don't delete it. And don't show anyone. Tyler gave a quick nod, his usual chatter replaced by a rare seriousness. Instead of heading back to the office, Eric took a detour. We're making a stop, he told Tyler, turning toward the office park where Lauren had parked. The Corvette was still there, gleaming under the afternoon sun. Blake's SUV was gone, but the office lights were on. Eric pulled into a shaded spot across the street, far enough to avoid notice. Stay here, he said, stepping out. His heart thudded as he approached the Corvette, the spare key heavy in his hand. He glanced around, no one in sight. The car unlocked with a soft chirp, and Eric slid into the passenger seat. The familiar scent of Lauren's perfume hit him, a painful reminder of better days. He rifled through the glove compartment. Nothing but a parking pass and some gum. Then he noticed her work bag on the back seat. His fingers hesitated over the zipper. This was crossing a line, but so was lying to his face. He opened the bag and found her laptop, still warm from use. Eric's pulse quickened. He knew her password, her birth date, a detail she'd never bothered to change. The laptop hummed to life, and he navigated to her email. His hand shook as he scrolled through her inbox. There it was, a thread with Blake Morgan, dozens of messages stretching back months. He opened one at random, dated 2 weeks ago. Asterisk can't wait for our meeting at Sunny's tomorrow. Wear that smile I like. Asterisk Eric's throat tightened. He clicked another. Asterisk, you're my escape, Lauren. Let's make this weekend count. Asterisk each word was a dagger, confirming what he dreaded. He kept digging, his anger giving way to cold resolve. Buried in a folder labeled work, he found a calendar invite for a client trip next month, except the attached hotel reservation was for two, in Blake's name. Lauren wasn't just cheating, she was planning a double life. Eric's eyes stung, but he blinked it away. He wasn't falling apart. Not here, not now. He snapped photos of the screen with his phone, every email a piece of the puzzle. A shadow moved outside the car. Eric froze, ducking low. Through the tinted window, he saw a security guard strolling the lot, radio crackling. He held his breath until the guard passed, then slipped out, locking the Corvette behind him. Back in the van, Tyler looked spooked. You good, man? He asked. Eric nodded, his face a mask of calm. Better than I was. As they drove away, Eric's phone rang. It was Lauren. He let it ring, watching her name flash on the screen. When it went to voicemail, she didn't leave a message. A minute later, a text. Asterisk, why aren't you answering? Everything okay? Asterisk, the audacity of her concern made his jaw clench. He typed a reply, but deleted it. Confronting her now would tip his hand. He needed more. A plan, not a fight. Back at the office, Eric sent Tyler to unload the equipment while he sat at his desk, the weight of the emails heavy on his mind. He Googled Blake Morgan again, digging deeper. A local news article mentioned his charity work, his perfect family. The hypocrisy fueled Eric's resolve. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was exposing a liar. But he'd do it right, through evidence, not emotion. The truth was his weapon, and he was only getting started. Eric sat at his desk, the hum of the office fading into a dull roar as he stared at the photos of Lauren's emails on his phone. Each word from Blake Morgan was a fresh wound, but the initial shock was giving way to something sharper: resolve. He wasn't the type to lash out or drown in self-pity. He'd built his career on solving problems, and this was just another one, no matter how personal. He'd expose Lauren's lies and Blake's hypocrisy, but he'd do it cleanly, within the law, and with airtight proof. He leaned back, forcing himself to breathe. The spare key to Lauren's Corvette still sat in his pocket, a small but tangible link to his next move. He couldn't confront her yet, not without a plan. Rushing in would only give her a chance to spin more lies. Instead, he opened his laptop and transferred the email screenshots to a secure folder. Every piece of evidence was a step toward clarity, a way to reclaim control. But he needed more than emails. He needed to know who Blake really was and how deep this went. Eric called Sophie, the company's IT specialist, who was known for her knack at digging up digital dirt. "Hey, Soph, got a minute?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. She swung by his office, her usual grin in place. "What's up, boss?" "Another client database mess." Eric hesitated, then lowered his voice. "This is personal. I need info on someone discreetly." He gave her Blake Morgan's name and the license plate of his SUV. Sophie raised an eyebrow, but didn't pry. "Give me a couple hours," she said, heading back to her desk. While he waited, Eric's mind drifted to a memory. Him and Lauren on their first road trip, her hair whipping in the wind as they cruised in the Corvette. She'd laughed so freely then, her hand resting on his. The memory stung, but also fueled him. He wasn't fighting to save that past. He was fighting to free himself from her betrayal. He shook it off and dialed his old college buddy, Mike, who ran a small auto shop just outside Austin. "Mike, I need a favor," Eric said. "Can you store a car for me?" No questions asked. Mike didn't hesitate. "Bring it over." Eric grabbed the van keys and drove back to the office park, the Corvette still parked where Lauren had left it. The lot was quiet, the sun dipping low. He used the spare key to unlock the car, his movements swift but calm. The engine purred as he pulled out, heading to Mike's shop in a nearby town. He didn't touch Lauren's belongings, leaving no trace of his presence. By the time he parked the Corvette in Mike's garage, covered with a tarp, his plan was taking shape. Lauren would notice her car was gone, and that would force her to act, maybe slip up. Back at the office, Sophie knocked on his door, a flash drive in hand. "You owe me coffee for this," she said, half smiling. She'd found Blake's public profiles, confirming he was married with 2 kids. But she'd gone deeper, pulling property records and social media posts from his wife, Emily. One post stood out, a family photo from a gala, Blake's arm around Emily, both smiling for the cameras. The caption read, "Grateful for my rock." The irony made Eric's jaw tighten. He thanked Sophie and promised her that coffee. The flash drive also held a bombshell. Blake had a history of shady business deals, including a lawsuit settled out of court. It wasn't enough to nail him, but it painted a picture of a man who played fast and loose with trust. Eric saved the files, his mind racing. He could send Emily the video Tyler had shot, but he needed to be smart about it. Anonymous, untraceable. He wasn't out for revenge. He wanted justice, for himself and anyone else Blake had fooled. Eric's next call was to a divorce attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Carla he'd met at a networking event. "I need papers drawn up. Fast," he told her, explaining the situation without diving into the raw emotion. Carla was all business, promising a petition by morning, citing infidelity as grounds. Eric felt a weight lift, not because he wanted to end his marriage, but because he was taking control. He wasn't the victim here. He was the one calling the shots. As he hung up, his phone buzzed with a voicemail from Lauren. Her voice was frantic. "Eric, my car's gone. I parked it at the office, and now it's just gone. Call me." He didn't. Instead, he leaned back, picturing her panic. She'd lied about her client dinner, and now her perfect facade was cracking. But then his phone lit up with another notification. A police report filed online, claiming her Corvette was stolen. And there, in the details, was a twist that made his blood run cold. Lauren had listed him as a person of interest, suggesting he might have taken it out of spite. Eric stared at the screen, the accusation sinking in. She wasn't just lying. She was trying to turn the tables, to paint him as the villain. For a moment, anger flared, but he tamped it down. This was her mistake, and he'd use it. He had the video, the emails, and the truth on his side. Lauren thought she could outsmart him, but she'd underestimated the man she'd married. He wasn't breaking. He was building a case, and he was ready to fight. Eric sat in his office, the glow of his laptop casting shadows as he reviewed the evidence. Tyler's video, Lauren's incriminating emails, and Sophie's dossier on Blake Morgan. The police report accusing him of stealing the Corvette was a bold move, but it was also Lauren's misstep. Eric wasn't rattled. He was ready. His attorney, Carla, had delivered the divorce papers, and he'd sent an anonymous email to Blake's wife, Emily, with a link to the cafe video, carefully routed through a secure server. Now, he waited, his resolve as steady as ever. The next morning, a police officer called, asking Eric to come to the station regarding the stolen Corvette. He agreed, gathering his evidence in a folder. At the station, Detective Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, sat him down. "Your wife claims you took her car," she said, flipping through the report. "Says you've been acting jealous lately. Care to explain?" Eric kept his tone even. "I didn't take it, but I know where it is. And I have something you need to see." He slid his laptop across the table and played Tyler's video. The footage showed Lauren and Blake outside Sonny's Brew, their lingering hug and whispered exchange unmistakable. Eric followed it with the email screenshots, each one time-stamped and damning. "This is why she's spinning stories," he said. "She's covering up an affair." Detective Ramirez raised an eyebrow, jotting notes. In the car, Eric leaned forward. "It's at a friend's garage. I moved it to keep it safe after I saw her with him. I didn't trust her not to run off with it. Or him. I'll return it today." Ramirez studied him, then nodded. "You've got a lot of proof here, Mr. Thompson. But why not confront her directly?" Eric exhaled. "I wanted the truth out, not a fight. She's the one who lied to you." The detective closed her notebook. "Stay here. I'm bringing her in." An hour later, Lauren arrived, her face pale but composed. She froze when she saw Eric, her eyes darting to Ramirez. The detective didn't waste time. "Mrs. Thompson, we have video of you at a cafe with a man who's not your husband. Your car wasn't stolen from your office. It was there. Care to revise your statement?" Lauren's composure cracked. She stammered, her hands twisting in her lap. "It's not what it looks like. Blake's just a colleague." Ramirez held up a screenshot of her email. "You're my escape, Lauren." The room went silent. Lauren's eyes welled up, but Eric felt no pity. "Tell the truth," he said quietly, his voice cutting through her panic. She broke, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Eric. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." But her words were hollow, drowned out by months of lies. Ramirez took her revised statement, dropping the theft charge but noting the false report. As Lauren left, Eric handed her the divorce papers. "We're done," he said, his voice calm but final. She reached for his hand, tears streaming, but he stepped back. "You made your choice." She walked out, her shoulders slumped, the weight of her actions sinking in. The fallout was swift. Emily, Blake's wife, received the video and filed for divorce, her attorney citing the affair in court documents. Blake's business took a hit as clients distanced themselves from a scandal, his pillar of the community image in tatters. Lauren's firm investigated her client trips after an anonymous tip, Eric's doing, and fired her for misusing company funds. The Corvette was returned to her, but it was a hollow victory, a reminder of the life she'd thrown away. Eric moved into a sleek downtown Austin apartment, a fresh start untainted by memories of Lauren. He threw himself into work, landing a promotion for his cool-headed handling of the trade show. But the real change was deeper. He enrolled in a psychology course, eager to understand himself and help others navigate betrayal. At night, he'd sit on his balcony, the city lights stretching before him, and feel something new: peace. He'd faced the worst and come out stronger, not because he'd destroyed Lauren, but because he'd chosen truth over chaos. He kept in touch with Sophie, treating her to that promised coffee, and even mentored Tyler, who'd sworn to keep the video a secret. Eric didn't need revenge. Justice had done its work. Lauren sent him a letter weeks later, apologizing and promising to change, but he didn't reply. He wasn't angry anymore. He was free. As he walked to his first psychology class, a small smile crossed his face. The road ahead was his, and he was ready to build something new.